stop-motion films have been some of the best pieces of entertainment in media and in filmmaking. However, there is one that takes a book adaptation to new heights. Coraline by Neil Gailmen. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy. Now, with most films, music was not really the main factor, as we have companies like Marvel and Disney only focus on the fights and nothing more. This film, however, despite being a book adaptation and a stop-motion film, takes music to new heights that most companies these days would just give up and reuse the same music from older films to save them time and money. With Coraline, most of the time we have music playing to fit whatever is going on in the movie for that specific scene or character. For example, the theme that plays when Coraline decides to check out the house for the first time, the music that plays whenever Coraline goes into the other world, whenever she goes ahead and visits the neighbors downstairs for the first time, and when she meets Bobinski for the first time. This movie has music everywhere, and it shows just how much attention that they gave this film despite being a book adaptation. On top of all this, whenever there isn't any music in the film, it makes that scene feel more creepy than if there was music put into that scene. Like the part where Coraline yells, "I'm not afraid," and then the door slowly opens behind her. Now this might be just basic filmmaking, however, with how well this film was made and how well it did and how it holds up today, it shows that this film was made in a way that many would see as it was made with passion and care. Now, I will admit that music can be overwhelming in most films or shows if the music is not put in the right place in the right time. It can mess up how that scene was supposed to feel, or the music is most of the time reused multiple times. But in this film, it finds itself in a perfect spot where there's enough different pieces of music playing, and that piece is fitting that scene perfectly for the film, but there's also enough silent moments where the film really needs it to build tension, which managing to pull this off is a bit difficult considering how much time and effort it is put into stop motion already. With all of this in mind, this film has done a great job balancing itself with music and making so many great pieces that if the film didn't have that many pieces of music that it did have, then we would have a whole different discussion for this film. Now, when it comes to making designs for characters, it's always difficult as you want to do something unique and different, but you don't know where to start without reusing someone else's idea and design, and you don't really know where to go from there. However, book adaptations make that job easier, and with this film, they took these designs from the book, but made them even better. But the other mother, she was creepy in the book already, but compared to the film's version, then we have a new winner. Her design makes her even more scary by making her almost identical to Coraline's real mother, but with a cold stare from those lifeless button eyes. Then, when her true form is revealed, during the middle and the end of the movie, you can tell she was inspired by a broken yet withering spider. Then, with Coraline and the others, their designs are by far the closest thing to their designs described from the book, but with a few changes here and there to make this film and these characters have a dark tone. And I'm all here for it. Now with Coraline, her design is practically what the book describes Coraline to be, however, with two changes, which one of them is the blue hair and the yellow jacket. Which, if you read the book, then you would understand that Coraline has black hair instead of blue, but also a blue jacket instead of a yellow one like the film shows. Which, supposedly, her hair color choice was a choice in the lore of the movie, as in the film, it was a deal that Coraline made with her parents so that she would agree to the move. I'm not too sure if that is certain, so take that idea with a grain of salt. Now, with the other father, on the other hand, his design was actually toned down in the film, as in the book, well, he looked like this, which, yeah, I'm kind of glad they changed him, because imagine if they kept this design, they would have to age up the age rating to PG-13, which I understand that PG means parental guidance. However, at this point, it's not even a kids movie anymore, which honestly, I'm shocked that the age rating is only PG, which as a kid, you would think this film would be terrifying to watch because, let's face it, the film literally talks about snatching kids and eating their souls and bodies for eternity and then replacing their eyes with buttons. Not something I would consider kid-friendly. However, besides that, this team did such a great job with their designs, and this film deserves all the rewards and praise that it received at the time, which, at the time, it won 8 times at the Annie Awards and was nominated 46 times, which one of those awards was for Best Character Design. So, this film did a heck of a job when it came to that department. So, if you ever want to watch a film that's stop motion, and it's your first stop motion film, then this would be your first pick. Now, stop motion is known for many things, however, one of those factors would be the atmosphere, and with Coraline, it goes above and beyond to bring this book to life. Everything in this film gives off this mysterious yet curious but creepy feeling that makes viewers want to keep watching, but are also afraid of what is in store for them while creating an image of what the book would be like. With the environment, you see just how gloomy the film is, but also how the producer uses this gloominess to make this film have a dark yet creepy tone, which, if anything, is almost close to something that Tim Burton would make, which surprisingly, the film wasn't produced by Tim Burton at all, but rather by Henry Slick, which was the creator of The Nightmare Before Christmas and James and the Giant Peach. Now, despite the film not being made by Tim, it doesn't take a genius to see just how great this film is and how similar the film feels to Burton's style, especially to The Corpse Bride, which The Corpse Bride is my second favorite film of all time. Now, the film also does a great job of making visually stunning environments that many seem to struggle with in this day and age, like the garden in the other world, the pink palace, and the forest at the end of the film. Now, the true reason that this film is great is that, sadly, most of the time, book adaptations are inconsistent, and I say this because of most of the time, creators lack the respect for the source material that they use, or they don't have enough money to bring this book adaptation to life. But in reality, most of the time, it's because of the higher-ups choosing to go for more money than making something that is great. And the book adaptation that suffered the most from these factors, I should say, was unfortunately Aragon, which I actually didn't quite enjoy watching, but the end battle just felt like it could have been better, but also the actors just felt like they were not invested into their roles. But also, this movie suffered from having a low budget, and that is seen by how poorly the final battle was, and how the movie just felt like it was pacing itself just in a pace that was too fast, I should say. But also, if you read the book, then you would realize that they changed way too many things to make this film close to something like Star Wars, which I have not had the pleasure to read the book myself. However, whenever I was researching this, I did in fact notice that the biggest con from this film was the lack of respect for the original version, or vision I should say, for the book, which, if they wanted to, they could have done multiple films if 1 hour was not enough. That way they didn't have to rush the film and make the film suffer and improve with each film to make sure that it stood true to the book as closely as possible. Now, book adaptations have always, for some reason, suffered, and I'm kind of glad that this film did well, and hope that a sequel does not get made, because sadly, movies, or more importantly, horror movies in this day and age, have been mediocre at best, and kids movies treat kids like they have brain damage. And honestly, I'm rather disappointed with how filmmaking has fallen. However, if they do decide to make a sequel, then they best make this film a successor to the first one, because if we do get one and it flops, then let's just say the internet is going to lose their minds. Okay, now this is a difficult part to talk about, as, well, there's a bit of a mix of positive and negative talk about the characters, as one of the characters in the film was never in the book, and that character being Wybie. Now, if you read the book, then you would understand that nowhere in the book does Wybie exist, which many people have brought up, that if a character that was never in the book in the first place, then why did the producers ever add them in the first place? Now, I won't dispute that. However, people need to understand that sometimes the producers are going to make one or two changes to make the film easier, especially when it's stop motion involved. And with Wybie, that was the case, as it was still supposed to help devise the plot, as in the book, Coraline talks to herself to tell the plot to the reader. And if they added this into the movie, then it would have been a lot harder to follow what was going on in the movie, and most viewers would seem lost. With Wybie added, however, Coraline now had a person to talk to instead of herself, but also it was a lot easier to explain the plot in a more visual action instead in Coraline's thoughts. Now, speaking about Coraline, her development is really well done, and tells Coraline in a way that shows more development than the book, as in the book she was more closed off and more shy, but in the movie, however, we see her go from a selfish kid who only complains to becoming a person who shows that she cares and is more compassionate and is more selfless, and now understands that even if she got what she wanted, it wouldn't be enough. With the character development with the parents, well, they are shown to be parents who are too fixated on work and don't acknowledge her whatsoever. And it shows just how much Coraline was curious about the other world and how easily she fell for the other mother's fake world and lies. Coraline's mother mostly shows this development, as we see throughout the film how uninterested she was talking to Coraline and how she was too focused on her work, and she kept telling Coraline that she was busy when Coraline was asking her to simply open the small door. And we see how annoyed her mother is when Coraline is talking to her, and when Coraline tells her that you didn't close or lock the door. Now, Coraline's dad, on the other hand, was a bit more interested in interacting with Coraline, as we have the rash on my scene, which I died laughing for 5 minutes when I first saw this for the first time, and is by far my favorite scene in the movie. Back on topic though, the development with Coraline, her parents, Wybie, and the other mother, and even the cat, are greatly written in a way that this film has some of the best character writing for stop motion other than The Corpse Bride and The Night Before Christmas, which is a really big bar to set, especially how good those films are. Now, I can admit, when rewatching this film, I was a bit frustrated with the parents for putting work first over the child, which I can understand. Parenting is a difficult task, and I'm not a parent myself, so I wouldn't understand that, and bills are not going to pay themselves. However, as soon as they moved in at the very beginning of the film, we see that they are already on their computers. And it tells me that Coraline being curious with the other world was not fully her fault. Her parents, in a way, affected this, and I see why. A kid who just moved and her parents never interact with her or acknowledge her whatsoever, and she knows no one in this new place whatsoever, and with most of her friends now far away, it shows that Coraline just wanted someone to talk to and give her the attention she needed. With all this in mind, this right here is what makes a great movie. A film that makes the viewer feel for the character and feel some type of way to how they treat the main protagonist and see how that protagonist's story changes from point A to point B. And that right there is what makes a great story and a great watch. Now, whether or not you liked or disliked the characters, or the parents will say, we can agree that the writing in this film is and still is some of the best in terms of storytelling. This is going to be a first for me, as for a book adaptation, it was think there would be no secrets flowing around in this film. A few theories here and there, but nothing more. Well, we were wrong, and the reason is during the publishing of the original book, it was deemed unpublishable, as it was said that the book was too scary for kids, and more importantly, it was seen more as an adult book. But it was only until the editor's daughter said it was fine was it finally published. Now, you're probably wondering why I would bring this up. Well, years later, the editor's daughter went and said that the book was actually terrifying, but wanted to know more about what would happen next. And if she said that the book was scary, then she wouldn't get to know more. So, if you were terrified as a kid watching this movie for the first time, then the reason why is because both the book and the movie were never meant for kids, and more importantly, the book was never meant to be published. And that statement from the editor's daughter just proved it. The fact that it was deemed too scary and the kid kept quiet to see what would happen next is something truly shocking, but also kinda terrifying in a way. It's terrifying because a book like this was never meant to be published at the time, but was saved because of the mercy of a child who, in truth, was scared of the book herself. Think on that for a second. Your entire book, and more importantly, your entire career, in the balance in the hands of a child. That, however, is just the tip of the iceberg, as in the movie and in the book, the lore for the beldam, well, she is a witch that uses her power to lure children by giving them a fake world where everything in this world was perfect, but in the end, it was just a lie. A lie that she knew that if they got what they wanted, they will want more. And without knowing it, once they leave their homes, they will never see the light again. Then, when she got the chance, she would put buttons into their eyes and then slowly eat the children's souls and bodies for years to possibly centuries, like a spider just waiting for something to step into her webs and then wrap it slowly but surely. Then, when all was said and done, it was time for the feast to begin. And that right there is just a sick and twisted idea that I never thought would be put in a book or film intended for kids. Then, there's a theory for this film. And it's said that Coraline never left the other world, but more importantly, the beldam won. The theory goes on about saying that at the end of the film, the garden looked exactly like the Coraline garden from the other world, but also the theory notes that the beldam has the ability to make illusions, as she was able to make Coraline think she was her real mother with real eyes when Coraline went back to save her parents. But in the end, it was just an illusion. It's also worth noting that people compare the other mother to villains like Pennywise. The theory also says that the other mother made Coraline think she left to the real world, but in reality, she never did. It gets even worse as it brings up how the ending was too happy, but also how the cat was able to go back to the other world at the end of the movie, proving that, unfortunately, the magic in the other world still exists. Now, I'm used to theories like this because of the mess known as FNAF. However, the more you talk about this theory, the more you start to see just how that theory could be true, and that's the terrifying part. Coraline could still be in that nightmare realm for all we know, and we don't even know it. And that's just a creepy thought to think about. Sure, some theories for FNAF might stick here and there, but most of the time, those theories just get scrapped because of the changing lore. With this theory though, the more you understand and watch the film, and understand the book, the more the theory starts to fit the holes and more terrifying this book adaptation gets. What's worse is that there could be a sequel, and I say this because the author himself stated that he hasn't ruled the idea out for a second book yet. And that right there tells us that there is still something to be told for this book. Now, this might never happen, but the fact of the matter is, the author himself has thought about a sequel, and it shows that at some point in the future, Coraline may come back, and it might be even more terrifying than before. Coraline may have been intended for kids, however, if Neil published Coraline for adults and then made the book even more terrifying than it originally was, then we would have something that even some of the most darkest lore for any horror game or series, and even worse than FNAF, wouldn't top. And we all know how dark that labyrinth is. If anything, think of it this way. We may be scared of the lore of FNAF, but we are terrified of the darkness that Coraline was shown to have, and more importantly, how it can get even worse. Now, that is all for me for now. I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you want more content like this, then please consider subscribing for more horror content like this in the near future. Now, I will see you all in the next one. Take care and God bless.